welcome back to Friends in Austin. Today we're doing another update episode. So we did an update episode in October, right? That was our first update episode. It was right before the road trip. We had just formed a team. The team is Dave, Zach, me.
It's true. Yep, confirmed.
That's the team.
Yeah, so I don't think we'll do these every month. Probably once a quarter. Yeah.
Unless there's a lot to talk about, which there might. I mean, we have a lot of good things going right now, a lot of momentum.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, just in case anyone's new to the podcast, I thought we should just briefly cover our introductions again. So, I'm Justin, one of the hosts. I'm from Indiana. I've lived in Austin for 7 years. I love Austin. It's great. Always been in entrepreneurship. Started doing some things early on that were good, and then I kind of, ended up just in this place where I was just sitting on the sidelines and watching a bunch of videos and ending up in like one of these like research phases that I think a lot of people end up in, where you just like, all you do is look up like how to build a company and watch a bunch of tutorials. And meanwhile, like you're just working a 9 to 5 and not doing anything.
Yeah, they get to that phase, but then they don't exit that phase. I mean, they might exit the way they came in, but not evolve from like actually implement it. Yeah.
And it's tough. And a lot of people get stuck like that. So it's like, I started by doing stuff, and it just, what I was doing didn't end up making very much money. Then I got stuck in that phase for years. But glad to be doing something again now, even though it's scary and it's weird, and you might not make any money.
They call that the golden handcuffs when you're stuck somewhere and like you got something good going and you can't get out of it.
That's basically what happened, because I got a job as a programmer. And so I learned to program to make software, to make money on my own software, but then I got a job and I just ended up, kind of like, oh, well, I have enough money to pay my bills now finally, which is great. So I guess I'm just going to hang out with people and chill, which is fine.
And
but
security, especially in a time like this, is totally understandable. And there's a lot of people that are risk adverse, again, also, especially in a time like this. So I give you even more props for quitting your job to do this.
Appreciate
and I think it's like you bring up a good point of why we're doing this. Like, we should never approach this show like it's Game of Thrones, where for a fact that everyone else is watching has seen the previous episode, because it's all based on character development. And this is not like a linear thing. Like, we obviously all know what's going on, but every time we make a new episode, I think we very much so approach it from whoever's seeing this has a general idea that it's Friends in Austin. You're the host or I'm the host, and this is a guest. But other than that, until we're way into this, I don't think we should have that expectation that everyone knows everything about the show. So this makes total sense to me.
And a brief summary isn't really going to, I don't think, bore our current listeners, And I know a lot, and I just mentioned some things even that I never really mentioned before that people might not know. So I guess that's who I am. I mean, I just want to make a living doing something that I like, because you have to work 40 hours a week. Either way you cut it, you've got to make money. So I want it to be at least kind of fun or fairly fun.
My name's Dave Perry. I am the other host on this show. I lived in Austin for 5 years. Justin was one of my first friends that I made through other friends. When I moved down here, I was a guest on this show in the way back in the early days, when there was a divider right here, and we sat in a corner over there on beanbags, and there was no video, and we held the mics in our hands, but I still loved it. Podcasts it's pretty much tied as my favorite format of entertainment, but also information. I would say it is the most informative thing that I consistently absorb or ingest. And I've always loved the idea of doing a podcast, and this is something you and I talk about all the time. And that the reason why there's literally millions of podcasts out there, because to create a podcast, you need this and the ability to talk. But what that also does is water down the entire category, pretty much guarantees that the quality of what you're going to make sucks. And we want to make sure that I hold ourselves to the same standard that I would hold of any other podcast that I'm listening to. So I want it to be like sonically pleasing. I want to feel like I'm actually in the room listening to someone talk. I hate phone call quality audio. I hate listening to people talk on Zoom, and even some of my favorite podcasts do that. And I won't listen to those episodes. I just can't listen to an hour and a half of like
a bunch of echoey stuff. It's like the teacher on what is it, Charlie Brown?
Yeah. But yeah, so I think we had very similar interests, but we're also different people in a lot of ways. And I think we realized that even our professional skill sets outside of the podcast align well. And the fact that we don't create an echo chamber between each other makes for good conversations both on the podcast and behind the scenes, and that helps direct the way that the show evolves, which kind of ties into the whole purpose of the podcast, is that we want to be reflecting the diversity and authenticity and everything that's unique about Austin and makes it a distinctly unique city in this country, which means that the people running the show should also not be
the same person.
Two white guys who agree on everything. Tuesdays at 9. You know, like that's I don't want that. You don't want that. So yeah, exactly.
What'd he say?
Fox News.
Okay.
They have women too.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so I definitely joined up for it. It was already a passion of mine in terms of it's a format that I absolutely love. Something as I always aspired to do. The idea of doing it by myself was overwhelming and just not fun. Like I want to share it with someone. So the idea of being able to share it with you has been great. And it's been a ton of work, and which I think is a good segue into this guy.
Back by popular demand. My name is Zach, and most of the work I do for the podcast is very much behind the scenes. Y'all never see me behind in the camera.
But if you're a guest, you might talk to him.
That's true.
Yeah.
He answers the door in a skimpy French maid outfit. And
yep. It's required. It's in my contract.
No eye contact. No. We were very clear about that. No eye contact with the guests.
No. Yes, sir. No, sir. 3 bags full. All that.
Yes, you're shearing sheep. Yes.
Yeah. And like part of my responsibility is just bringing guests on the show and like bringing people on that we think that y'all would enjoy seeing. That's about the extent of it.
He's underselling himself. This is a tremendous amount of work that we all participate in, and something else that we do as the podcast is we have a Patreon, which is basically a kind of an ongoing fundraiser at like a super low level that anyone can participate in. And by being a part of that, you get access to a lot of behind the scenes content, including our like planning and strategy and sessions and our status updates where if you're ever curious about how podcasts work, especially for people who aren't like, already entering this as podcast professionals, I personally just find it interesting. Just all the things that we're learning while we're doing this, all the minutia, all the details, all the rescheduling and technical snags and opportunities that we identify. But at the end of the day, you only have so much bandwidth. You only have so much time. So we need to make decisions about like, what are we prioritizing? What are we going after? I think something we've been talking about a lot recently are these like big swings where we want to shoot out of our league. We want to get some really huge guests on here that are connected to the core of our Austin demographic and telling the Austin story. And that will open up a lot of doors. But we also know for sure going into that it's going to be 98, 99% no's. So it's just like going into that in the right mind frame that like, let's just keep hitting the pavement until we get to that.
And Zach has snagged us some good ones coming into December. So I'm very excited about that. So yes, he is underselling himself.
Classic Zach.
Story of my life.
I am very excited. We have a good December.
We do.
Yeah. With the things that are already scheduled, there's some stuff that's already recorded.
Before we go into that though, I want to take a step back and say, as you mentioned, the idea of doing a podcast by yourself. So it's like, that was my original intent, is to do a podcast by myself. But
Idiot. Like, so dumb.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I can't imagine how demoralizing it would be to look at the pile of stuff that the three of us have done and been like, that's just my to-do list. I mean, it's crazy. And the people you talk to, about every entrepreneur that I've had on the show has brought up team. They're like, like I would never be here if it weren't for the team that I work with. We've been bankrupt 3 times, or like this would not have happened. And even Patrick Armstrong with his own podcast mentioned, they have a large team, and I'm like, wow, like a lot of this.
They're like 8 people.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, three's it's what we're doing is great, But yeah, it helps so much having a team, and as you said, I do believe that our personalities and our skill sets complement each other well from a company standpoint and just from a standpoint of having diverse personalities on the show. And Zach getting guests and all that stuff, that takes a lot of, everything helps so much.
Yeah.
So
or like yesterday, not taking away from you, it's just, this is something you by law could not have participated in, but Justin and I spent an hour at the bank yesterday with a banker that was from my hometown. So that was fun connecting with. Shout out to Chase on South Congress, right?
Yeah.
From Milwaukee?
Her name was Rochelle.
Rochelle. So she's from Madison. That's where I went to school. I have family in Madison. Her brother lives in Milwaukee, which is where I'm from. So we connected on that. But anyway, we were there for an hour and just like getting everything set up with our LLC paperwork and getting that aligned with we setting up bank accounts and getting cards and attempting to set up a line of credit with the business and there's a lot of just this isn't I have a phone and I can talk, now I have a podcast. Like, this is a fucking business. We're taking it seriously. It takes a lot of work. There's a lot of roadblocks. There's also, the successes are also awesome. Like, I get super fucking jazzed about some of the simplest things because it's just like, no one else is going to do this. So
I feel like a crazy person sometimes though. just like I literally feel like a crazy person because it's like, oh yeah, the idea of like starting a podcast and trying to make money sounds really ill-advised.
I had dinner with Justin's parents, and that was the first time I'm meeting him.
I didn't meet his parents
a couple weeks ago. And it was really interesting. I mean, I felt like in a way I was kind of like interviewing them while it's just a normal conversation. That's basically what we do on the show. But like, so your mom is just like Captain Positivity, like, follow your dreams, shoot for the stars. I love that you're doing this.
She's not like that. When I told her I was quitting my job to do this podcast, she was like, I don't know about that. Like, and even when I dropped out, every idea that I've had that was kind of out there that actually ended up very well for me. Like when I told her I was like, I'm quitting school. This is too expensive. Everyone that I know that has a degree can't fucking use it. They're just a stack of paper amongst a stack of papers. All the millennials, we all got swindled into buying this expensive bullshit education that hardly anyone can use or get any value out of. It's like, yeah, sure, if you're a fucking doctor or something. Yeah. Like, yeah. But other than that, it's like, oh, we all have this really expensive piece of paper that no one fucking cares about. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to explain that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm quitting. This is stupid. And she thought that was a very bad idea, but it turned out great for me. And also she thought it was a bad idea for me to quit my job. But
I think it's a blend of, yeah, I think it's a blend of, obviously she loves you and she's cautious and wants you to make good decisions, but it's also very clear.
Our parents' generation is drilled into their head. They're part of the problem. Go to school, get a job. Mm-hmm. You need a bachelor's degree. Mm-hmm. Who cares if you're happy?
But also, I college back then was like $12,000, and that's not even like adjusted for inflation. Literally, the price of a good college education was so much more affordable.
I hope that COVID breaks all that down and turns it all into bullshit, and it's seen for the scam that it is. It's a fucking scam.
I think it will.
I do think that there is a scam.
There a lot of it. I do think that there's institutions out there doing amazing work, and specifically,
there are.
If you have a very specialized, focused physicists, everything connected to the medical field, all that shit. Yes, fucking, I want all that, and I want the Yales and Stanfords, and like, I want the highest level education to be protected. I also want that, I think associate's degrees and
trade schools.
Dude, yes, like there needs to be
electricians and mechanics make great money.
Plumbers, yeah, there's a lot.
What's big in Texas? HVAC.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see Airtron in my neighborhood every other week.
Oh yeah, those dudes are killing it.
But I think I think in our generation there's this perception that I think comes from entertainment and the depiction and like Married with Children or whatever. Shows that it's the guy with his ass crack hanging out. I was like, dude, these people can make you go through your apprenticeship. You do continued education and skills. These people have amazing benefits, tons of job security, make close to six figures. Yeah. Like, you can eventually start your own shop. Like, there's a great career path there.
Coding is so glorified. And to me, as a programmer, I see programming no different than being a plumber or electrician.
Really?
I see it no different than that. I mean, like, you're like a mechanic. It's like,
yeah,
we want this thing to work in this way. You're calling you an engineer. Some software engineers say that they don't like the word engineer. Some of them do. Yes, you're like developing a system that has different components that you're plugging in together, and there are different levels to it. Like as you're early on, it's like you're not engineering so much as you are implementing someone else's blueprint. But as you get more advanced, you start actually engineering stuff and deciding how the components fit together. But to me, how is that much different than being an electrician or a mechanic and opening up a car and knowing how the parts fit together, or what part could I swap for this? Or an electrician, they look at your house, they look at your layout. It's like, how many volts can this handle? I have to take some measurements here. It's the same thing, but meanwhile,
you would certainly want the same level of professionalism. If I'm trusting you to build a website or app for my business, I would certainly hope the same level of trust and confidence that I put in you would be into the person who's adjusting things on my house that could burn it down.
To me, I see them almost as the same kind of job.
Yeah,
so I don't understand why coding is so glorified as opposed to being an electrician or a mechanic.
To call a spade, though, like an electrician's skill set is, just in terms of its application, I think is much more valuable. Just in terms of like literally every structure, every house, every business, every
You can make the
like-
same argument of software. Everything runs on.
Oh, now you're
software
shitting on
now.
electricians.
But I mean, that's why I see them as. That's why I see them as
Books
equivalents.
don't run off of programming.
yeah.
Breaking news. This just in.
But you know what I mean.
Justin hates plumbers.
I have a few very close friends who are our similar age who are plumbers, and they're like, I am by far the youngest person on the workforce, and they have kids, and they are the sole breadwinner, and they do well. I do think it's a perception thing that there's just this idea. I don't want to be a plumber. It's like, dude, it's a fucking good job. If you like working with your hands, the work is there. The work will always be there. We're not gonna fucking replace plumbing, like, or if we'll be dead by then. By the time they replace them, whatever they figure out.
Yeah. Your shit will just be vaporized
Yeah.
on impact to the toilet.
The space vac or something.
Have you seen Demolition Man?
Oh.
Does it got
Schwarzenegger,
Wesley
right?
Snipes?
No, it's not
Wesley
Arnold
Snipes.
Schwarzenegger. Yes, Wesley Snipes.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
And,
What the
and
fuck's wrong with
Sly
you?
Stallone. There's a scene, there's a very brief scene which they don't explain at all. But so Sylvester Stallone wakes up out of this like cryogenic freezing 50 years after being arrested and imprisoned. He wakes up. The first thing he has to do is take a shit. He's like, where's the shit? And he goes into this bathroom, and it has a toilet or whatever, but there's no toilet paper, and there's just a shelf with 3 seashells on it. And he comes out and he's like, what's the deal with the shells? And everyone laughs at him like, oh, he doesn't know how to use the 3 seashells.
Is that where
Like,
that joke came
Yes,
from? It's
yeah.
on Reddit all the time.
Yes, dude.
Okay.
3 seashells. and they
Demolition
never
What do they
Man.
do? What are the seashells? Oh, they don't ever say what the
They
seashells
never explain it.
they knew it'd be stupid if they
So what
explained
he
it.
does is that in the movie and in that society, you get a public fine for swearing in public, and there's like machines everywhere that's listening to everyone. So he just goes up to a machine. He's like, "Fuck, kiss, punch," or I can't even swear, but he swears
Does he
a bunch
pull a
of
George Carlin?
He basically does
Cock,
that,
pussy, shit, fuck.
and a bunch of tickets come out, and then he wipes his ass with that. So, quality entertainment.
All right, I'm watching Demolition Man
Also,
tonight.
Taco Bell in the future is the nicest restaurant in the world. That's from the movie. So it's amazing.
That's amazing.
Yep. We got way off track.
We got way
Off
off
the rails in true Friends in Austin fashion.
Yes.
So I guess one of the things I wanted to cover is why are we doing this? And I touched on it a little bit. The selfish reasons are because I think I and you want to do something fun with our lives, which I think it's okay to have selfish motivations. But also we need to provide value to people, and and I guess from the beginning, the way I pictured this podcast was like, and one piece of advice I've gotten from other people in business is like, you can copy a model of what someone else is doing and apply it in a different way. So like the way I kind of see this podcast is the Joe Rogan model, which his model is national, worldwide, really.
Yeah.
And he has a lot, of course he's a celebrity and all this stuff. So he has all these other things. And, I'm all for shooting big, but I think being practical, it's like, how can you take the Joe Rogan model and emulate it, but apply it, but be successful? Because you can't immediately compete in that space, especially not being a celebrity.
Right.
But okay, I love Austin. Let's scale it down to the city of Austin and focus on the celebrities of the city, the people of note in the city, the people that are just fun to talk to in the city. So this is basically like the Joe Rogan model applied to Austin, but we have other ideas for it as well.
Yeah, for
too.
sure. I mean, I totally agree with everything you're saying. I just think we're going even further down the funnel. And you and I had this conversation yesterday. I asked you, does Rogan ever have anyone on who's just like nobody, but he knows that they're super interesting and that will make for a good conversation?
I don't think so.
Right. And he can afford to do that because he's Rogan. So like he
Yeah.
could literally get anyone that he wants. And I can obviously keep doing that. But like, I think we're working towards having a blend between that because Austin is known for its weirdness and it attracts so many people for tech and music and art and food and the LGBT community and people who have lived here for multiple generations. Like, we want to have this blend of like the industry leaders, prolific artists, personalities, whatever in the city.
We
but
even
also,
want to have a homeless person on the podcast.
I want to have a bunch of homeless people on here. I'm totally serious. We talked about this.
have a
yesterday.
homeless roundtable.
I am super compelled about telling the story, the narrative of, and putting a face to homelessness in the city. There's a lot of complications that come up. That's not a casual thing that you can just like dip your toe into. But I've already behind the scenes and working on getting some things set up that would allow us to do that. And like, it's selfish to be a resident of Austin and not at least be cognizant of the plight of these people. And there's veterans, there's drug addicts, there's people suffering from mental health issues. There's people who just got like a bum fucking rap in life. And like, I want to tell some of those stories. It is a part of Austin. It just is.
I'd be very much interested to hear from those people and also kind of like what they think would work for them. Like, should we build bigger, better facilities outside of town? Do you want to be at that facility?
That is a really good point in terms of like,
Would you rather camp on Riverside?
I've heard so many solutions from like civil engineers and politicians and stuff is like, what does the guy currently living in a ripped up tent, what does he think would be a good idea?
And that should at least guide your decision making to make an effective solution.
Because it needs to be embraced by the people that you're offering it to.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like you don't need to totally like just do exactly what they want, but if you have an idea of what they want, that makes your solution more effective.
I completely agree. So I think that there's, and I mean it in all sincerity, I think that there is a lot of good that can come out of that for this show, for the homeless community, for the organizations locally that support them. I just think we're all about interesting stories. There is a plethora of interesting stories to come from there. And if that can end up helping people, I don't know, that in terms of why we're doing this, if I can add to the list that like some of the things that we do legitimately help people, that makes me feel great. So.
Yeah, and maybe I'm dreaming big here, but I mean, I do want to be in a position to where we can influence decisions made by the city council, everything like that. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but like,
or help startups that may have never gotten noticed before get noticed. So like if we can build a platform that helps either, make it's enough of a
make the
reflection
people
of
of
our
Austin heard, like what do people want? Have people like what do people care about that live here, you know, and then be able to influence city council and actually make changes in the city. I know that sounds really big, but it's like, why not?
Completely agree. I do have one, and we can skip over this in editing if you want, but we were talking about some current events things, or I guess rather a lack of that. But there was one thing that came up that I wanted to get both your guys' opinion on, that I'm conflicted on how I feel about it. So Steve Adler, our mayor, as many leaders of cities and towns have done, made a statement around Thanksgiving saying like, please like respect the COVID numbers and the research and like minimize gatherings, don't travel for Thanksgiving, all that stuff that you've heard from the top down. Unfortunately, and I'll preface this with, I like the guy. Unfortunately, he did that video from Cabo.
Oh.
With like 40 friends and family members.
Dude, the governor of California just implemented new bans, then was caught eating at a restaurant with 10 people.
Yeah, in like Napa Valley. So it's like, so I'm conflicted on these two things. So one, it's really easy right off the bat, just be like, fuck you. Like, you know, you're not going to hold yourself to that standard, but also you still need, regardless of what that individual is doing, you still need leadership. You still need direction. Yes, I would hope that they fucking practice what they preach. But just because he went to Cabo, I don't think that he should not push that out. They could have done it better. Maybe don't have him do the video while sitting in a timeshare or something. It was handled very poorly.
That's my thing with politicians in general, and why they're all so hard to trust, and why Trump rose to power, is because I think people don't trust these people anymore. And anybody that has a career in politics, in my opinion, they kind of seem really scummy. They're very power hungry. Matthew McConaughey wants to run for governor of Texas. And I mean, people might shit on like, oh, he's a celebrity, but like, he seems like a really authentic guy. He just wrote a book. I mean, yeah, he's a celebrity, and people could argue like, well, what do you know about managing this or that? But like, well, hold on. I mean, if he's a smart, authentic guy that doesn't have a career in politics, I'd be interested to see what his campaign gets.
That was Trump's whole on paper promise, like he's going to run America like a business, but then you actually like look at his business record and it's hilariously bad.
So shitty.
McConaughey has successful businesses. Like he has a bourbon company. He has worked out great deals with Lincoln and Wild Turkey that are like unconventional in terms of how he gets compensated for his advertisements, as well as being just a phenomenal actor and building a career off. So if you're going to tout yourself as like, I'm a businessman, you should be a good businessman when you enter into that. And for the record, Schwarzenegger and Reagan, both actors before they got into office, and both on paper did very good things.
Yeah. So I'm not opposed to that. I'd rather vote for anybody that doesn't have a career in politics just because I trust them more off the bat. Adler, I haven't trusted since fucking Lyft and Uber got kicked out of town. You know, whatever you think
still
about.
Sore about that.
Dude, you use that shit every day. It's like, oh, I now have to use Ride Austin, a government-made Lyft and Uber. That's the most gangster shit ever.
Do you remember Arcade City?
Yeah. I got rid of my car the month before Austin. Or so for the record, Lyft and Uber left. They would say that they were forced out, and conditions were created that were not the same as the rest of the country. So it does go both ways, but they weren't like forced to leave. In fact, they spent $7 million on running advertising for a proposition, because basically it was put up to a public vote of, do you want the drivers of Lyft and Uber to be held to a higher public standard?
I know all of that, but like I don't know. It's so sketchy.
I mean, it fucked me over for I didn't have a car. I got rid of a car because like I can just rely on Lyft and Uber. And then a month later, and they were gone for a year, dude.
Yeah.
And the shit like Arcade City and whatever, Fasten,
It was.
none of it ever got to a point of actually working. App crashed all the time.
I never had a problem with Arcade City. For those of you not in the know, Arcade City. So when Uber and Lyft left Austin, there was, the market's a bore of vacuum. And so a Facebook group was started with these people who were probably former Uber and Lyft drivers. And what you did was you would hop on the Facebook group if you needed a ride and just say, hey, I'm here. I need to go here. Who can take me?
It was like black market.
It was like black market. Yeah.
That's
Fucking Uber and Lyft.
sketch as fuck.
It was sketch as fuck, but it never did me wrong,
Oh, well, as long as it worked for you.
Yeah. So I'll champion it all day.
I actually did
But
go
I
to,
understand.
I went to one, they had the Arcade City had these like public hearings where people could come. And it was at this like really famous physically underground bookstore that's by the campus by UT that I'm blanking on the name right now, but it's like a landmark over there. And it was weird. It was cool like seeing literal like community in action.
Yeah.
People are like, people rely on this not only from a transportation standpoint, but from an economic standpoint. A fuck ton of people lost their jobs when Lyft and Uber left.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like people rising up and kind of pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. I found that inspiring, but then I'm also like, I'm surrounded by a bunch of hippies that like the passion's there, the drive is there, the like logistics and realism is not in the same room as us right now. So anyway, so that was a nightmare for a year, but they're back and we're all good.
Yeah.
Anyways, I thought it was interesting. I really don't think that he was trying to trick people. He's like, it's like very clear that the room that he's sitting in, it looks like a hotel room or something. And then public officials schedules are available to anyone who wants to see it. So it wasn't like a secret that he was gone. It was just like, clearly that was a poorly thought out initiative. Like,
I mean, how do you be that stupid and make
it's very dumb. It's
into office?
very dumb, undoubtedly.
I mean, that should just be like, that's just the essential, you should know better than that.
Yep. Agreed. That's all I got.
I mean, as a politician, part of your career is like your perception to other people.
Yep. Completely agreed.
Yeah. So I think, why are we doing this? Well, I mean, we just covered a lot of it, and we want to do a lot for Austin because, I mean, we have to provide value for people to want to watch this.
And we're going to launch McConaughey's campaign, and we take it very seriously. Very. I can hear Knight downstairs just like tearing shit up.
Yeah. I think Colleen.
Colleen's back. Knight figured out how to open up doors. Knight is a gigantic German Shepherd that's downstairs, just so you know.
All black Shepherd. Yeah. He's the one that knocked the light over in the last episode, 2 episodes ago.
Which could that be a segue into like, I just wanted to cover just like a few of the episodes that we've done recently, since our last update. So you did a holiday update, which I thought was really cool. It's cool hearing about like the different ways that people approach Christmas. One of your guests had like 6 siblings. Other people come from divorced families. Obviously, religions and stuff like that can have an impact on how you approach Christmas. And then just culturally, like some people open up their gifts on Christmas Eve, some don't.
Yeah.
Some people don't like it when you use their bidet.
Some people get shrapnel on their bidet and then end up using more toilet paper even though they have a bidet.
There's a lot of medically specific information and details in this holiday updates that's surprisingly not holiday specific, but it's real life. It's real life. So
what was your comment? It was like a great blend of what?
It was like family love and just
graphic content.
Yeah, it just makes it a Friends in Austin class.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a weird combo.
But we're not like shock jockeys, but we also don't censor ourselves. So I like that. I think it is a good example of like, we just want real people, whether they're here talking about their business or talking about their fight against, drug addiction or terrible relationships or a failed career or whatever. Like, we just want to be able to create an environment where we can have a totally organic, normal conversation about it, and like not censor yourself. So
for sure. Authenticity,
bro. Speaking of authenticity, you had George Vance McGee on here, who is an Austin unicorn, author. He's in the real estate business with his dad. I thought the silent aspect of that was interesting, which I'd not heard it before. That basically you have the option to not use
silent market thing. Yeah.
MLS, is that what it's called?
Yeah. Multiple listing service is what that's called.
So that, they offer this to you that allows you a few different options of avoiding kind of like the open house rush. It protects some of your information in terms of what the house was bought and sold for. Excuse me. And he was a unique guy. He talks about wearing a unicorn costume and riding around town on his bike and going into the W Hotel, and just an interesting guy. So I was glad that you had him on. Oh, and also he reached out to us, and we've had a lot of that recently, which I told you yesterday. I take that as a compliment.
For sure.
That we haven't been doing this for a super long time, and we already have members of this community who we don't know. These aren't like friends like, bro, why haven't you had me on?
Yeah.
These are strangers, but like people who have a story to tell from total and some very different walks of life who are reaching out to us, want to be on, and they're going to be on, and it's cool. Like, I'm happy about that.
I am too. Yeah.
I think it's cool.
That makes it fun.
I've had a few of the mind melds, which has been great. I'm always happy to have a few people on at a time and tell those stories. It's probably night. You had Jason, Kalish on. And he was working in the NBA bubble for over 90 days. And then he came out and he did this episode. And super interesting hearing about like life in the bubble, the advancement of his career skill set, which kind of like had this crescendo and then hit a fucking wall. And then actually as a byproduct of COVID, he got this great opportunity. So not only was he in the bubble, he came out, did an episode with you, and now he's back in another bubble, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's back in another bubble.
I just think
I call him Bubble Boy.
Bubble Boy.
I didn't know he was back in it.
I told him, I was like, hope your bubble pops and you drown in it. I literally sent him that
Classic
text.
Justin.
Just super
You're doing
interesting.
great. Fuck you.
So there was so Shane, one of my guests on an episode that was published today as we're recording, he says this phrase that I'd not heard of before, that you can drown in a teaspoon of water. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Have you heard that?
No,
I
I didn't
didn't-
heard that. And I don't believe that.
I also don't believe it, but it's definitely like, because I looked it up afterward, like it's definitely, it's like in the vernacular of certain, that there's some sayings that just
like an idiom. or
yeah,
something like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Horseshoes and hand grenades and shit
Mhm.
like that. But it's interesting. For the record, I really don't think you can drown in a teaspoon. Even if
I think you can
fucking straight up
inhale.
snorted it.
Yeah. You would just cough most of
If it
that.
all goes in your lungs, I still don't think you'd die.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't die. It's not enough fluid.
What
just-
else we got? You had I'm gonna screw her name up.
Shawnee Major.
Shawnee Major,
Mhm.
and explain how you connected with her. I think that's kind of cool.
So I'm part of an entrepreneurship group of a show that I've been watching since college, which when I first got my entrepreneurial kick, I don't even know how it originated. I was just Googling stuff online and I came across a channel called This Week in Startups, which is just basically covering a lot of startup culture in Silicon Valley, and he was having a lot of like entrepreneurs just getting started on the show. And one of them was the guy that started DigitalOcean, which is one of the biggest web servers now in the world. I remember watching that guy's episode and he was so young and he was like, I have all these connections and blah, 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 blah. And they're basically like, shut up. One guy was like, all right, what kind of cereal do you have for breakfast? They're totally shitting on him. Like 10 years later, he's like got bigger companies than them.
Uh-huh.
I love that. That's great.
But anyway, I love that guy's show, Jason Calacanis. He's hilarious and he's very brash, but I like brash. Anyway, there's a Slack community around that. This Week in Startups is what it's called. And she was posting in the Austin channel asking about current events. And I'm like, well, there's not a lot of current events going on. It's COVID. But, if you want to do a podcast, do a podcast.
Because she was coming. She's from New York. She came to Austin.
Yeah, she came to Austin because she's scouting it for possibly living here.
Yeah.
And doing some business stuff too. Yeah.
She has a super interesting story. The origin of her business is really interesting.
Yeah,
she deals in wills and what happens after people die and the distribution of their
Assets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of murkiness. Sure, anyone that's watching that's like lost a parent or something before, like it's, even if the will is in place, sometimes there's some like not clear cut shit. And that came from personal experience. And I love that. Like, I think that that's really cool. Honestly, like when going back to, you were saying like, why are we doing this? It's personal experience for me, is I know that this is something that I'm passionate about. Her business came from a problem that she personally experienced.
Scratching your own itch.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
that she was like, there's no solution for this. She did the research, looked out there. She actually did. I mean, I was impressed by how much she, in all aspects, including programming.
Yeah, thank you for holding that, because the dog sometimes like pushes the door with the nose, and it's a heavy door, so it's not good for the wall.
He's a heavy boy. I just really appreciate, literally soup to nuts, everything from interviewing lawyers to getting super plugged into her programmers. I love the story that she tells about, like, she writes a thank you note to this team in India, and they like video call her and show her that it's hung up in the room and that there's like people. She's
They're, like,
it's-
crying.
Sweet.
yeah, literally. But you think about that. They're like, people view us as tools, not as people, and we're working on these insane conditions, and we know that we're doing work for pennies on the dollar. And I don't know. I like that whole episode. I thought it was really cool. So
Appreciate that. Glad you liked it.
good on you for that. Patrick Scott Armstrong, fellow podcaster here in Austin, who is a part of a big team, and they're doing really good stuff. Super frequent episodes at a high quality level, covering a huge range of topics. I thought your conversation was really good. I thought he had good advice coming. He's, a year ahead of us in terms of his experience, and he also comes from a totally different world.
Yeah,
He's in the culinary world.
He lived in Spain for a while. He was a great person to talk to. It was actually really good because I didn't really know how that episode was going to be or whatever. It was great talking to someone else that's doing a podcast because, like I said, I feel like an insane person half the time trying to make money on a podcast. But it's like, well, there's proof. I mean, people are doing it.
For sure. And you could also, like, going into that, we neither of us knew him. On paper, you can immediately look at him or anyone else and be like, this is the competition, especially because he's in Austin or whatever. And I've gotten nothing but like a community vibe from that conversation that you had, that it was all about a rising tide raises all ships kind of thing. He had great advice. He was all about like, your success is my success. I loved it. I thought it was great.
And that's the thing about podcasting in the podcasting world is that people have mentioned before on the podcast that I listen to is that it is a very much like, it's not cutthroat. It's like podcasters want to help out podcasters and podcasts grow by being on other podcasts. So, hey, if you're a podcaster out there and you want to be on this podcast, let us know.
Yeah. Because we might reach out to you and want to be on your podcast.
Exactly. Exactly.
And then the only other one since our last update was Kevin Newsom from Steam Espresso. And like, just the idea of having local business owners on here talking about their products. Not only the products, but just like, I thought his deep level understanding of like grocery store economics and visual placement and pricing relationships between the creator and the distributor and the end result and everything. I thought it was fascinating. He's clearly a multi-level guy. He starts talking about this completely different startup, basically the
Air Meat.
Yeah, it's like the Indian version of Zoom.
Mm-hmm. But they're trying to recreate conferences virtually, so they're different than Zoom in that way.
Yes, true. Yeah. But he's a sharp dude. And it's clear. I mean, I wasn't in the room. I watched the episode. I wasn't in the room. To me, I just got this like warm vibe from him that he's a smart dude with not a overly amount of ego.
Yeah, he's very humble.
He's got his finger in a bunch of pies because that's what stokes his fire. Whatever.
Yeah. And he's like, hey, no one's going shopping for hot tubs, but this is a good order, but no one's going shopping for hot tubs.
So yeah, I just and what are we on now? 34
was the episode you put out, was 34th, the one you put out last week.
A lot of this, when we first got together, I think I even had apprehension. I think it's worth noting that when you and I decided to do this together, because you were like friend of a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, like as we're doing this together,
we're getting to know each other.
We're getting to know each other, which is interesting to do like in a business scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just a fucking stranger.
Yeah,
I'm
not telling you anything.
But it was very clear at first, and it is still clear every single day that we talk. And you even talk about this on certain podcasts where with Shani, she asks you what your superpower is, which I think is always a really interesting question. And your thing was just like, I just do stuff. Like I have an idea and then I do it. You have the opposite of that, like paralysis through analysis, which is good. Like you said at the beginning of our conversation, there are a lot of people who enter that research phase and then they just fucking live, or they talk themselves out of it.
Mm-hmm,
it was very clear when you and I first started talking about working together that you're just like, okay, whatever, but like, let's do it. Like, okay, I get it. We don't have to keep talking about it. I was like, okay, pump the brakes a little bit. Like, and that's a little bit how we are, the yin to the yang of each other. And that like, you have this drive and determination. And again, the fact that you quit your job, I was like, this dude's fucking in.
And as do you have a lot of drive and determination too, but also good structure and good business sense too. So that definitely helps a lot.
Because that's what friends are for. Yeah, so I'm very happy with how everything's going. We're still just getting started. We have so many ideas and aspirations and roadblocks, and like there's going to be a lot going on. I think 2021 is going to be really awesome for this.
I hope so, and I feel that way too. I literally feel like we just started like a week ago because like
yeah, I agree with that.
It's so ever evolving and growing and just. Yeah,
You were saying to me the other day that I spend a lot of time editing my episodes.
Mhm.
And when I say a lot of time, I mean like sometimes dozens of hours, which can be very time consuming. And you, and rightfully so, have this emphasis on consistency. You want to be consistently publishing content in the same way that you would for any other form of entertainment. If you're a TV show, a band, whatever, like you want stuff, you
Mhm.
want more content from them.
Mhm.
And we should prioritize that. And like, you've been putting me in this mindset of not be a perfectionist. And so that helps.
Mhm.
But to your point, like saying that you feel like we just started last week,
Mhm.
but the whole time you have been full speed ahead on like, I'm going to consistently be putting out episodes every single week, which I really appreciate, which puts us at, the 34 or whatever we're at right now. And
Mhm.
this time next year, we're going to be in the hundos.
Yeah. We should be in the hundos,
Which
by
is cool.
then.
I'm super
Yeah.
excited about that. And this is not like, I have no short-term aspirations for this. I'm not like Valentine's Day is when I'm wiping my ass with fucking $100 bills. I'm really excited about the small wins. If we just have a good episode that after it's all edited and published, I feel good about it. I feel proud about it. And then specifically, if we hear from our audience,
Mhm.
they like it, even if it's just a soundbite or a clip or whatever. Like, if I know that we're on the right track, I get amped about that.
Well, see, and that ties back into what we were first talking about, is doing something that you like doing. So it's like, yes, of course, eventually we do need to make some money to make it, just like feasible.
Feasible, yes.
Mhm.
It needs to
To
be
keep doing
feasible
it,
over
yes.
time, but at the same time, it's like we both have a lot of runway, you could say, as
Yeah.
far as mental and emotional runway, just because it's fun. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
And it's something that we want to do. We're not making microprocessor chips in the garage or something. Things that we know would get bought that we don't have an actual specific interest in doing. Like,
Yeah,
we're doing
yeah.
something that we're passionate about, that we hope we know that people have a ton of options when they listen to podcasts. We've already heard from like Patrick, who came on. He was sitting here. He's like, this studio is fucking awesome. He even said that he took note of us in the first place because of the quality of the video
Mhm.
that we're putting up, because people just aren't doing that in the podcast world in
Mhm.
terms of a lot of what's out there.
And
which-
And that's what makes me feel a little less crazy too, because
Yeah.
because we're on Listen Notes top 10% of all podcasts.
I was gonna say, can you talk about some of the milestones that we're going through?
Milestones. Okay. Thanks to the both of you, we've hit over 500 followers on our Facebook page, which we're trying to. Of course, we want to build a community there that we can engage with. It's not just like, how many people can we get to follow us? We hope that we can like post questions to that and get people involved and get
I want people talking to other people, not just us. Like, I
Yeah.
want there to be discussions on each episode. I think I know for a fact that you and I both learn things from the people that we have on every single time. So I know that people can be learning things from the people that we have on. And like, I want discussion around that. If you don't like something, I want to hear it. If there's something you want to see more of, I want to hear it. Like, I want it to be a dialogue for sure.
Okay, and on that note, if anybody of you that is a Facebook fan that's watching this, get involved. And I'm going to give some shouts right now. Some of the recent people: Jules Wittert, Mitty Flores, Brian Wood, Crystal Etzler, Kim Terratelli,
Kardashian.
Cindy McKenzie, Andy Cedino, Daria J. Landry, Johnny McGee, Jerica Jones. Thank you all for following us on Facebook. And
Literally every single time a new
Oh.
person joins our community, subscribes to our YouTube, whatever, we get a notification. So literally
we see that.
there is it
Yeah.
every single time. We're like, oh shit, one more. And that's not a small thing for us. We're
Mhm.
excited about it. So
for sure.
keep going.
So I capped the Facebooks at 10. I'll do some of the YouTube ones, and to anyone, we're not going to read names for 20 minutes. We capped all these at 10. So some of the recent YouTube subscribers: Jennifer Toon, Nicole Cap, Neo Gigo, Kung Fu Pandas, Adam Von Felt, badass name. I like that name.
That's a great name.
Brian Kruger, do you know Freddie? Strawberry Panic 87, Mark Nathan, Daniel Arata. I hope I said all those names right. It's hard to say.
Love it.
So those are some of the YouTube people. We already shouted out some of the Facebook people. But on that note, I wanted to give a thank you to some of our real friends that we know in real life that have been watching the podcast and been fans of it and shared it on their Instagram. For example, Selena Hoban. Me and Zach have known for many years. Really cool chick. She has, how do you say it? Charcuterie?
Charcuterie.
She started doing these charcuterie boards on Instagram, and it's very cool. She's actually busy enough to where she's shut down shop until the 17th of December.
What's the name of the company?
I'm about to say it right now. It's at Lavender Turf.
Fucking calm down.
I was excited. I like meat and cheese, dude.
It's at Lavender Turf on Instagram. And like I said, she's taking a brief pause, but she's been taking it seriously for a while. So, and she has a form that you can submit. So if you're interested in getting a charcuterie board,
Nailed it.
Selena, super cool chick, really authentic, nice person. And if you're in Austin, check out her Instagram and maybe send her a message and get aboard. And clearly she's not paying for this. Nothing that we've ever said on this podcast we've been paid to do. I also want to give
making no money.
Well, our Patreon's pulling in some. Yeah. I do want to give also a thank you to Hometown Hero, specifically Lucas Gilkey, the founder of Hometown Hero, who gave me a bunch of free awesome product. I love that episode. And also I have continued buying from them now. The CBD is my favorite product of theirs. And CBD actually, it totally calms you down and chills you out, and it actually gets you a really good night's sleep. Again, not getting paid for this. I legitimately use their CBD. I like the dropper. You talked about the CBG, you can smoke it and all that stuff. And if you like to smoke things, that's probably, you might like that. But I don't really like to smoke things, I notice. Like I'll vape, but I don't like to smoke.
I was amazed by just the sheer variety of tea,
salves.
Gummies.
The tea's good too.
Yeah, it's cool how many different products they have. I also personally love how their integration with like local artists. That all their labels and stuff, right, are from...
Yeah, exactly. Local graffiti artists.
Kind of everything about that organization is like super Austin and great.
Yeah, so if you're curious about that, check out that episode. That's Lucas Gilkey, Hometown Hero, and the dropper. I like the dropper because you just drop it in your mouth. It's 100 milligrams or whatever it is. Actually, I'm not sure. And it works. It really works.
Do you do it directly on your eyeball if you really want to party?
No, I've never tried that. Don't recommend that. So we did the Facebook shouts. I also want to give a shout out to our Patreon people: Rob Kerr, Jack Squire, Ken Penny, Shannon Sayers, Travis Wolf, Ken Sikora, Luke Johnson, Jason Kalish, Sarah Johansson. Thank you so much.
Y'all are great. Guys. Y'all are great.
Okay, so can we talk about future plans maybe? We talked about this a little bit already. I want to get more involved with the people of Austin and our community and build a community.
Completely agree. I think that, like, so when you were talking about the Joe Rogan model, Joe Rogan and Armchair Expert, I think every single podcast that I listen to, which is quite a bit, has no geographic restriction, which in a certain context is great. You can have experts and comedians and artists and whatever from all over the world if you are able to either be there in person or have an internet connection. And I love that.
And I've had people ask me, it's like, well, aren't you like painting yourself in a corner there with the Friends in Austin thing? And I'm like, well, how about like, okay, you try and compete with all the podcasts in the entire world and start your podcast.
Sure,
Go for it.
But also conversely, no, that's like our point of pride, our point of differentiation. Like we all live here. We all love it here. We're not leaving. We're excited about the growth of this city and our personal growth and our career growth within the city. And like we're a part of the story and we want to tell other people's stories. So we do have geographic confinements. We also don't live in bumfuck. Like there's millions of people here, and like there's a wealth of information and stories. So yeah, we do have geographic parameters by design. We're digging into that, and I think that's cool. I love that. So
hey, FIA listeners, just before this episode is over, I want to give you one more quick friendly reminder to please like and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player. Thanks again. Another thing I wanted to give people that follow us on Facebook an opportunity. If anyone that follows us on Facebook that's part of our Facebook fan page, if you have a product or service that is accessible by the Austin market, I want to give you a free shout out. It's just going to be a simple, quick shout out like this. It's not going to be like a 30-second ad spot. We're not going to charge you for it. I just want to give back to the people that are following us and give you some more exposure. So if you message us on Facebook and just tell us the name of your product or service and a very, very short description of it, we will call you out on the podcast. I don't expect that we'll get dozens of these, but in the case that we get way too many, we will have to cap it at the first X number. I don't know what that number is. Maybe 20, maybe 50. Maybe we'll spread it out over multiple episodes.
But the door's open.
But the door's open. Yes, please send those. Is there anything else? We've been going for 50 minutes. Anything else we want to talk about?
We have a big month this month. And like I totally agree with you for whatever variety of reasons, both for legal reasons, for logistic reasons, for being more prolific, whatever. There's something about this last few weeks that really feels like, even though we've been doing this, you have been doing this since April. This is a almost full 2020 initiative. Like there's just something about, I feel like we're really starting to get into our stride and super excited about it. There's something just about like even if it's the small wins, booking a guest that we're super excited about or being really proud about an episode that we have come out, like that just fuels the fire. And there's no shortage of those kinds of opportunities and the things that are to come. And I'm just really excited about doing this, man.
Good. I am too. How about you, Zach? Are you excited?
Super stoked.
There is
No,
something.
yeah, we have a lot of good guests coming on, and I'm very excited about what we have.
Can you feel the excitement? It's just oozing out of them.
Yeah.
Just it's like an explosion of just joy.
Yeah.
That's Zach out of 10.
Yeah, you just went to 11 there.
As
so.
excited as I get. I'm sorry, guys.
There's something
I used
like
to jump out of airplanes for a living, so the bars.
It's just not much
is my
stimulus.
life at risk at any point in time during these interviews?
Yeah.
No?
unless I'm in physical danger, you don't get a rise out of me.
All right, I'm bringing a gun to the next episode.
Please do.
We'll do
address
some
it?
Russian roulette. Be like, all right, take a spin. All right, Zach, you're answering this question.
Just gonna be sitting there the whole time. We never address it, or maybe that's our sponsor.
Russian roulette.
Russia.
I was gonna say like Smith and Wesson, but also yes, we can. I'm sure someone owns Russian roulette. We can.
Did you guys ever go to newgrounds.com when you were like in middle school or high school?
Yes.
I loved
Yeah,
playing
I
Russian
lived
roulette
on
on
that.
newgrounds.com because like
What?
you just have a cartoon character and you'd play and like you'd each click and then someone would get their head blown off and you just hope it wasn't you.
Newgrounds was like an E-Bombs world, kind of like there was right.
Yeah, it's
Flash
like really
stuff and
Yeah, like one game I played was you were Cisco and there was jizz flying in the air and you were catching it with his mouth. And like the thong song was playing in the background.
I clearly was not in the right sections of this website, but
That is 2000s as fuck.
Yeah.
there honestly is a part of me that kind of feels bad for the current generation of when you like literally don't understand what life is like pre-internet. There has been something that our parents can't relate to, and what the new generation cannot relate to is that the introduction of something that has literally changed the entire planet and how people communicate and how entertainment works, and also all of the other negative shit. But like we lived through that. We had Zach Morris cell phones, and then we were thrilled about the Razor, dude.
Oh my God, the Razor.
Dude, it flips up. I vividly remember saying out loud, why do people text? Just call. I have to push the number 2 3 times just to get to the letter C.
Yeah.
Why do people
T9 word?
I remember thinking it's so dumb. I very specifically remember hating social media, mainly because I had a terrible ex-girlfriend that used it to like keep tabs on me. Now it's like a central part of my career and livelihood.
Yeah.
We are going through something that the previous and newest generation aren't going through. There's something kind of really cool about this. So like these early days of the internet, they won't be able to like, and I guess when 20 years from now, they might look back on like, remember when Facebook wasn't implanted in your brain? Oh my God. I can't believe we used to use our phones to access Facebook.
And have a
actually-
separate device? What the hell?
I'm getting kind of bored. Like we had a life-changing invention with the internet. Like, come on. I mean, electric cars aren't enough.
What's next?
Oh, we gotta have. I want something on the scale of the internet. Bring it.
What would that be?
Virtual reality. That's really
like,
that's in
legit.
distinguishable from reality.
Because current virtual reality is
Garbage.
it's headed in a good direction and it's made in it's like good garbage compared to garbage, but yeah, we're still pretty. I always feel like in our entire lifetime, the hallmark, the most stereotypical future thing. I'm actually not gonna say it. What do you think in movies and in shows or whatever? What has been the hallmark? Oh, this show takes place in the future is because of this one thing. What do you think it is?
I'm not totally following you. This show
When
takes
you see something like when you see the movie Blade Runner or Demolition Man or whatever, what is the one thing you're like, oh, this is in the future because they have this? It's like a thing that doesn't
I
currently
feel like
exist.
flying cars.
Flying
or
cars,
something.
dude. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was gonna say. That
Mhm.
there's something about that idea. Fifth Element. It's all
Yeah,
about
I was gonna
flying
say
cars.
Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Great movie.
There's something about flying cars that for decades people have been like, that is the future. A flying car. Even though we legit have self-driving cars. I was just reading about this Audi that has headlight drones that go in front of your car. Even when you get out of the car, the drones leave the car and light your way to your door or whatever. There is legit like fucking crazy future shit happening right now, but still the hallmark stereotypical thing of what the future is has been flying cars. I don't know why, but I'm waiting.
All right, let's close this out.
Get on it, Audi. Make that fucking car fly.
Yeah.
Planes can fly, cars can fly. That's all I'm saying.
But I mean, you need a license to fly a plane. I guess you need a license to drive a car too. But it's
Yep.
like, yeah. I mean, I think that flying cars only really makes sense when no one drives them.
You're
get
just
them.
overthinking it, man.
Yeah.
We just want the future and we want it now, and we'll figure out the logistics and details later.
Teleportation would be way better. Let's just jump ahead.
Yes.
Yes. Have you seen the?
So,
have
I'm
you,
at Dave's.
Have you seen The Fly?
I'm downtown.
Yep.
I'm home.
HEB. I'm home again.
Have you seen The Fly with Jeff Goldblum?
The Fly, is it that really weird movie where he like turns into a fly?
Yeah, because he develops a teleportation thing, but the first he does like a test run and a fly gets into the chamber with him. So when he
shit.
teleports to the other thing,
It's like a really, really old horror movie.
yeah,
It like blends the two together,
it
right?
does.
He just-
So we should do it right.
Yeah, yeah.
as long as we're not flies.
I don't want to be a fly.
I don't either. They don't live very long. And the existence that they do have just sucks. They just crawl around shit.
And they vomit on stuff before they eat it. And he kills Gina Davis. It's bad, dude. Don't kill Gina Davis.
Not the
That's all I'm
future you want.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to Friends in Austin. Hopefully this episode wasn't too crazy sporadic.
I gotta pee.
All right.
Me too.
Later, dudes.